Hello, I hope that this finds you well. Many of our schools around the Cognita family are actively preparing for the start of the new academic year. And I'm aware that for some of our students, this may well be the first time in quite some time that they have physically been back in school. Now, from talking to many of our school leaders, I know that they are really looking forward to having students back and looking forward to the start of the new academic year. And I know that our staff in schools will do everything they can in order to ensure that the start of the year is both positive and safe for everyone. It is understandable that some people may have some small anxieties about the return to school, and I think that that's absolutely fine given the context that we have all been living through with COVID. In order to support this, we've recorded a short video with Professor Tanya Byron. Now, Professor Byron is a distinguished clinical psychologist, and she has deep experience of working with children and young people. And the focus of this video is very firmly on the return to school. And I hope that you find it useful.
Tanya, very warm welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Could you help us advise parents about how to prepare their children for an environment that is different and uncertain and perhaps anxiety-inducing? And I suppose if I could also tag on a second part of that question, through the eyes of students, if they themselves are feeling anxious in terms of trying to empower them, what sort of things could they do to proactively help manage this?
So I think uncertainty, as humans, we don't deal well with uncertainty. We don't. I mean, you know, we like things to be certain and clear. That's part of kind of retaining a sort of a balance, a homeostasis, if you like, in our sort of psychological function and well-being. So, yeah, uncertainty is going to trigger anxiety. And obviously there is uncertainty about how things will feel now we move into this next stage. And obviously for children going back to school, some of them might be like thrilled beyond belief because they've absolutely, you know, just can't wait to see their mates and they just don't want to be around their parents anymore. Some may deal very well with whatever changes schools are going to have to make and sort of managing, you know, health and well-being and all the things that we've all had to think about a lot. Some of them might find them fun and enjoy them. Some of them might really struggle with them. I mean, the key is, first of all, it depends on the age of the child. Fundamentally, it's really important. The best way to deal with anxiety is to think about it. You know, a lot of people might say, oh, don't talk about that. Oh, it's going to make them anxious. But actually not talking about something sets someone up to find it even more difficult to cope with. So I think it's worth that parents really sit down with their children and really at an age appropriate level talk about how things seem to be, what they are being told might happen, how the classroom might look, how playtime might look, how social interaction might look. Conversation is really important. Don't avoid a conversation. A lot of anxious children will internalize. So a lot of kids will not want to talk about what makes them anxious. Often people get very superstitious when they're anxious and they think if I talk about it, then it makes it more likely to happen. And that's again because the rational brain is kind of dulled as our limbic brain takes over. So with very little kids, you could do, you know, little techniques like you can create a little box with them, a little worry box, and say to the children, look, anybody got a worry in the day, just pop it in the box, write it on a piece of paper, pop it in the box, and then we can have worry time for 20 minutes at the end of the day, and we can all sit around and we can hear everybody talk about what's making them feel worried, and then we can all think about ways to help them feel okay about it and how they can cope with it, and what sorts of, you know, it might be that special pebble that we all remember getting when we went to the seaside that time. Maybe you could take that in your pocket. Would that make you feel better going back to school? Or, you know, okay, I think I'm going to email your teacher beforehand and let them know that you're concerned about this. I think giving children a way to express what's on their mind is really, really important. And the same with older kids in the terms of conversation. Be very careful with anxious kids. Often they start reassurance seeking. And you've also got to be very careful not to over reassure a child, because children have to learn to self-soothe, which is why sort of saying, look, let's have this time of the day to talk about whatever is on our mind is quite good, because you kind of give it a time of the day and you get the children or the young person just to hold on to their anxiety to then talk about it. And then I think what you want to be doing is thinking about different things that you can do to help them prepare themselves for school. So improving sleep, reducing their screen time. So screens, sleep, routine, getting back into a routine, thinking about really useful things that you can do when you feel anxious, how you can manage your breathing, or, you know, little mantras that as a family, you know, little things that we will all say together in our head, you know, to help us all feel better. Just create a sort of language as a family and a way of talking about it, and give your child their own anxiety management strategies to enable themselves to expose themselves to this next stage of change, which is going to be anxiety provoking for anyone. In terms of going back to school, you've got to get sleep back. You've got to get technology out of children's rooms. Kids have to be off their screens at least an hour before bed. There has to be a good sleep routine before bed. And if your kids are going to sleep at 2 and waking at 10, you're going to have to be brutal and get them to get up at 8, even if they didn't go to sleep till 2. Right. Because what you'll do is you'll shift the sleep round so that then they'll go to sleep earlier and wake up earlier. Sleep sits at the core of our well-being. And we are seeing as clinicians, I would say, I mean, I'm 53 years old. I've been doing this job for 30 years now. So I've probably got quite a good longitudinal view of child and adolescent mental health. I think I'm working with the most sleep-deprived generation I've ever worked with. And I think when we talk about the spike in child and adolescent mental health, I think there is a big part of that that is linked to very poor sleep habits and poor sleep requirements not being met. And that is often to do with screens, kids having their alerts on during the night, waking up, kids gaming. If you're gaming internationally, if you've got friends in a country in another time zone, going on a quest, if you're playing one of the MMPOGs, the massive multiplayer online games, if you play, you know, you will wake at 4, because if it's not your time zone, you'll wake whenever everybody else in your gang are playing together. But we cannot expect children and young people to manage their own boundaries around well-being if we're not supporting them to do that. But I think fundamentally, it is about parents remembering that they're in charge and they set the rules, and they have to find a way for children to understand what the rules are, by there being incentives for sticking to it and consequences for not. I find it really interesting because when parents come into clinics and they, you know, often parents are very worried about their child's academic development, and are they, we're worried they're not focusing, they're not concentrating, they're not learning. And there's a real focus on that sort of fetishizing IQ, fetishizing what my children know and how they'll learn and what results they get and all that. And actually the basic stuff like how well is your child sleeping, what's their diet like, how balanced is their lifestyle, how good are they at socializing, what is their social skill development, how well are they doing with their friends, that stuff kind of gets pushed to one side. It's almost like we've lost a focus on how to build resilience in children and how to enable children to be their best selves.
And all of those things are almost, I'm guessing from your perspective, the readiness for learning, that learning cannot take place unless all of those basic elements are in place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't have put it better myself.
So just thinking then about the return to school, I think what I'm hearing you say is that one of the most important things for all children and young people thinking about that return, it is very much just about routine. It's as simple as that. It's about thinking about routines and being prepared for that change. Is that right? Absolutely
correct. Prepare, have a conversation, look at what's making you anxious, find ways to help children learn anxiety management strategies. You know, if you're very anxious in the morning before school, the family could go for a really brisk walk with the dog, just really kind of, let's just kind of get ourselves set up for the day, whatever. Breathing exercises. There's some lovely apps for children. There's one called Clear Fear, which is really helpful for children who feel anxious. They've got a little breathing circle.
From your professional perspective, are there positives that can come out of a period like this for mental well-being, not only for the return to school, but for beyond it, you know, for life?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. I'm really happy you asked me that because, you know, generally the question is, what's the doom, what's the gloom? You know, I think one of the things that myself and a number of other professionals, I think we all think about it in child and adolescent mental health, is we think about resilience. I'm also a journalist. I've got a column in the Times every week. And so often if I'm writing about childhood mental health issues, and yes, that, you know, we are seeing more children presenting with mental health issues now than certainly when I first qualified back in the late 80s, early 90s in the last century. That's how old I am. Yeah, we are seeing, an increase. Is it because there's more? Is it because children are more open? Is it because there's more awareness? Is it because we spot it more? There's all sorts of questions about it. So I guess what we are thinking about for children and young people is, yes, it's been difficult and challenging. It has brought a lot of families closer. There are more people playing games with their kids and chatting than busy lives would have allowed previously. It has got a lot of people to prioritise exercise. People now are thinking, ooh, let's go for a walk, let's go for a run, let's go and jump on the trampoline. I think it's changed priorities in a way that could be extremely healthy for a lot of people. But I also think what it has done is it's enabled kids to recognise that life isn't safe and certain. And yes, that is challenging, but it is something we have to understand. And then we have to recognise our own resilience in the face of those challenges. And so if you look at the post-traumatic stress disorder literature, in other words, the stress that comes out of trauma, alongside that is literature around post-traumatic growth. And it also talks about how a lot of people who have been through extreme trauma or adversity can come out of it feeling a lot stronger, and they feel that they have grown as a human being. And I guess that's something we can think about for our children and young people and for ourselves. What has this taught me? What have I understood? I now know my neighbours better. I'm spending more time doing kind things like going shopping for someone who's elderly on my street. Connectivity, kindness, sleep, exercise, sitting with your family, enjoying time, because that's all we've got, and recognising that you are resilient because you've managed, you've done really well. I think these are the positive takeouts from this very difficult and challenging time.
Thank you for watching this video. I do hope that it was useful for you. If you have any individual concerns or queries, please don't hesitate to reach out to your child's school. I know that they will be really pleased to work with you. The most important thing is that I really hope that your child has a great start to the new academic year. Great learning ahead, but most of all, I hope they enjoy the start to the year. Of course, none of us know what the year ahead will hold, but I'm really confident that our schools will do everything they can in order to work in partnership with you to ensure that your child has the very best learning possible. Keep safe and take really good care.